As always, it's great to be along with you. It is the Gashouse Gang with Kevin Wheeler. I am Tom Ackerman. This is KMOX's live stream that also is played. Many of you watch this on replay or listen to it on replay on KMOX.
We're everywhere, Tom. We're everywhere.
We're all over the place, man. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you want to be. This is our baseball discussion for you. We did this for you because we know a lot of people, throughout the day need a place where they can have lunch and get some baseball talk. And the audience certainly is picking up. And I anticipate we're going to have a good one today because you can see, perhaps, wherever you're watching this, the name of this episode 31, I can't believe we're already at 31 episodes, is the Goold Standard.
Oh.
So
we're straight in with clever. First guest, first pun.
Very clever by our producer, Drew Young. We're going to be joined by one of the great writers in America, and that is Derrick Goold of the Post-Dispatch, who covers the Cardinals and apparently also covers the Blues, although that was his first gig when he came into town. He was covering the Blues for the Post-Dispatch. He just did that in Dallas. Did a nice job.
He's the man.
He is.
Pretty much does
he was
everything
down at the winter meetings, and Kevin and I have been talking baseball quite a bit. Let me, before Derrick comes on, tell you real quick that last night the Jack Buck Awards went down very well on KMOX. We had some great honorees and just a lot of star power in that room with Eli Drinkwitz, Brady Cook, Jeremy Macklin, Ken Hitchcock, Chris Zimmerman as the honorees, Doug Armstrong and Laird Veach and Howard Richards and Jim Woodcock were the presenters. Lutz Pfannenstiel was interviewed out in the crowd. I went out and talked to Josh Schertz and Mike Jones and Blues coach Jim Montgomery. Jones, of course, celebrating the 25 years of celebration since he made the tackle, the greatest tackle in NFL history. So it was a really fun night, a great celebration. And the reason I'm bringing that up is it is banquet season, and there's a big one coming up the weekend of the Cardinals winter warm-up. The baseball writers' dinner will be taking place in that very room, the Missouri Athletic Club, the Missouri Room downtown. Kevin, it's one of the last remaining ones. New York is the other one.
Really?
And St. Louis, the Baseball Writers Association of America St. Louis chapter has been putting on the baseball writers' dinner since, Bob Bragg was writing columns, maybe even before that, covering the Cardinals.
That's crazy that those are the only two. I'm a little surprised at that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great night because obviously, you get a lot of dignitaries there, all of the local chapter award winners, player of the year, personality of the year, those things, they're all there. So it's a pretty cool atmosphere. It's a little bit like the Buck Awards, except that it's just baseball.
Yeah, exactly. They actually do occasionally honor some from other
that's
sports.
True. It's
they
true.
Do bring in a couple of honorees. So they got a really nice guest list, and we'll kind of let you know what that's going to look like when Derrick comes in. While we have a chance before we get into some baseball talk, because I don't want to steal Derrick's thunder at all, but who you got this weekend? Let me give you your games. You got Indiana at Notre Dame, which has everybody watching on Friday night. You've got the Saturday games, Clemson, Texas, Penn State, SMU, Ohio State, Tennessee. Who you got in the first round?
Well, I told you already. I've got your guys. Whether you want to go betting purposes or not doesn't matter to me, because what I'm looking at is, I think, straight up win. I think they're going to win this game. I don't think it's like a long shot or anything, by the way, not a shot at Notre Dame or anything like that. I like what your guys have done all year. I like how they play a tight game. I like how they just don't do things that beat themselves. And again, not that Notre Dame does. I just, when you add it all up, to me, there is an emotional side to college football, and to all sports. I mean, let's be honest, to all sports, but more so in college football. And I think that they have a little bit of a grudge. I think they have a coach with an edge, and I've not always liked what Freeman does in big games in terms of game management since he's been the head coach at Notre Dame. They're very talented. Notre Dame is excellent. They can easily win this game. But I'm gonna give the coaching edge to Cignetti, so I'm gonna pick your guys. If you want to take the 7, take the 7. I'm calling for the straight up upset.
You're talking. You got Indiana money line.
Yeah, I mean, no worries, man. I that's where I'm going. I'm not gonna hold back. I really do believe it. I'm not just like being nice to you. I really do think
you would tell it to me. And look, if you said it was Notre Dame, you wouldn't hesitate. You would tell me Notre Dame. No, I agree with you. I think that Indiana is going to win the football game. I think that they are loose right now. Everything that I hear from my guys on the inside, very loose, very excited, very well coached, very present. So they're really enjoying the moment, and they think they can drive up there and beat them. And they're in a great situation where they don't have to go very far. They have the shortest trip to a playoff game. And I like all the home teams on Saturday, although I'm very curious about SMU. I think they could surprise, but I like all the home teams.
Yeah, I've been underestimating Penn State all year, so I'm not going to keep doing that. I thought all year that they were overrated, but they're here and they're in good position. I think Texas is a pretty solid pick over Clemson. Clemson's mostly been underwhelming. And then Ohio State, Tennessee, flip a coin. And if I'm flipping the coin, I'm going to be like you. I'm going to land on the side of the home team there. So we see things the same way. And obviously, we can get into more college football later in the week. We got our guest waiting. Our buddy Derrick Goold is jumping on to talk a little ball with us. What's up, Derrick?
Not much, guys. How are you? Hopefully you can hear me. All right.
Yeah. Everything sounds great.
Great.
There he is, Derrick Goold, beat writer, Post-Dispatch. You know him well. Has covered the Cardinals for a long, long time. And I mentioned before you came on, before that, you were covering the Blues. We saw you. It's like riding a bike. You just picked it right back up.
I don't know if that's the case. Covering events is a lot different, especially covering Blues events, a lot different than when I was doing it, which was, pre-Twitter, just the churn of the website. So what Matthew DeFranks does on a daily basis, like it's just a different kind of thing. Like baseball, you go to the ballpark and you're there till you're done. Hockey,
right.
You go to the rink in the morning
and then you leave.
And then you leave, and you might not be done. And they might make a trade, and then you might have to do a bunch of stuff. And then you go back to the rink, and then you're definitely not done. So it was good. I enjoyed it. Saw a heck of a game by Jordan Binnington, and not a heck of a game by the Blues overall. But yeah, it's nice to stretch those muscles every so often.
Yeah, absolutely. And Derrick, you ended up covering a trade in Dallas after all. Cam Fowler gets acquired by the Blues. You didn't expect the Cardinals to make a trade in Dallas, did you?
No, I did not. I didn't. You never quite know if some team's going to go over the top, like say Boston did, right, to get the Crochet. You just don't know if the winter meetings creates like this hothouse of anxiety or urgency for one team that just says, all right, forget it, we're going to do it. And then I guess there was that potential, like a team that is trying to sign Alex Bregman could have a meeting with Scott Boras and go, enough, we're just done with this. And then call up the Cardinals and say, we're ready to go. That could have happened. I didn't expect it to. I expected it to draw out a little bit more. We're still here waiting for Bregman to sign, and really that's a big part of this is where the Cardinals go. And we're still waiting for a few of the starters to sign, or at least not sign, and teams shift to maybe looking for some more deals that they could make with the Cardinals for starting pitching.
So on that front, Derrick, I mean, we're only gonna, we joke about this all the time offline. Like, we're not gonna ask you to guess. We do that. We're the ones that do the guessing and the speculating. But are you hearing much about what might be happening when it comes to the starting pitching market in the Cardinals? Because one of the things we want to kick around as we go is my minor worry. It's not a fear at this point because it's too early. But my minor worry is that they get caught in between. And in between, making a couple of smart sales versus staying a little bit more competitive. And I think the in between is kind of a bad place to be. And I'm not saying tear it down. I am not a tear it down guy. You've got the number 5 pick in this coming draft. You had the number 7 pick last year, and you didn't have to do any selling to get it. You didn't have to tear the thing down. So that's not kind of my point. But do you worry about that at all? Or do you think that based on what you're hearing and people you're talking to, that things are still outside of Arenado, things are still going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know that things are definitely going to happen. I know that they'll listen. It's a matter of what offers they get. I think, one of the maybe the decision that will answer your question is Eric Fetty, right?
Right.
Like Eric Fetty has a lot of appeal in this market. 1 year remaining on his deal. Definitely pitches beyond his deal. Lots of value in that deal. You get him for a full year. He goes out, has a great year. You know, the likelihood of him getting a big deal and you getting a qualifying pick or a comp pick, excuse me, with a qualifying offer, you know, that's there, right? Like, say he has to have a really good year, but one where you'd want to make that $20 million commitment and hope that he signs a multi-year deal elsewhere, right? Okay. So I could see how all that would come into play, and, you know, he'd be very appealing for teams. The question for the Cardinals is sort of like having their cake and eating it too, right? Do they want to see where this team takes them as they lower expectations, lower the average age, and lower the payroll? And does that lower them in the standings, or maybe not with the way the division is going? And we could discuss that if it's really substantively changed all that much with the, and I guess, introduction of Kyle Tucker and exit of Devin Williams. But, you know, when you have to kind of look at, okay, do they want to give this roster a chance and then have as a backup plan the heightened sort of offers and heightened price you can command at the trade deadline for a Fetty, for a Helsley, or for other guys then too. You know, do they want to try to do that? It makes sense with Helsley. I'm eager to see if Mats or Fetty get kind of the traction that would get an offer that the Cardinals would be like, okay, yeah, we like that youth and we want that depth. And then we can pivot to spending that same money on a free agent starter that's still out there.
This is the Gashouse Gang from KMOX with Kevin Wheeler and Derrick Goold, our special guest from the Post-Dispatch, STLtoday.com. I'm Tom Ackerman. We're sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer. Derrick, what are the Cardinals trying to do when it comes to, you know, we all know that in sports it can be copycat league after league. I think for years people envied the Cardinals and the machine of bringing these players up and watching them thrive. That is not happening anymore, but it is happening around baseball. So they're bringing in people from other organizations. I think we're going to hear more and more start to come in, but right there in their own division. I mean, the Milwaukee Brewers do it as well as anybody. Jackson Chourio made his MLB debut last year on opening day. Yeah. And here he is, one of the stars of the game. I mean, isn't that really what they're trying to pattern themselves after?
Yeah, and there's a lot to that. I think it's really interesting, like the Jackson Chourio comparison, the Brewers comparison, and the Cardinals. I actually talked to, the Adam McCalvey, who covers the Brewers for MLB.com, a little bit about this. Is why did they stick with Jackson for so long when he was struggling off the top? Well, he got to play about 50 games where he was really struggling, and we saw that, Jordan Walker did not get that many games and then was back in AAA. But the Brewers hung with him and then benefited from a tremendous second half surge, just like really, one that put him in the conversation or at least the voting for the Rookie of the Year. And, Mason Wynn had kind of the more consistent year overall when you look at his rookie year. But Jackson Chourio forced his way into the conversation with that kind of second half, second 2/3. And Adam McCalvey told me that had they had an alternative, because they had some injuries, had they had an alternative, they might have optioned him out, but they didn't. So they were able to stick with him. That's fortunate, I guess. You don't ever want to say an injury is fortunate, but that's fortunate for them because they got to stick with Jackson. They got to give him the playing time. They got to see what came with it, but it's also illustrative of what the Cardinals have not done, really. They did it with Nolan Gorman, but you haven't seen too many players come up here, struggle over a long stretch, and still get in the lineup. That is not, the Cardinals, they've got a lot of pressure to win, and they got a lot of depth pushing at that pressure in different ways. But they haven't had a whole lot of performance make the decisions for them. So it's twofold. Cardinals haven't had a whole lot of patience. They also haven't had a whole lot of performance to force the decision for them. So it's created this catch-22. where they've been impatient with prospects. And, this is very clear. We can list them all, like name a prospect that has thrived elsewhere. And we can talk about why they didn't get the longest look in the Cardinals. And some of that's circumstance, some of that who was playing ahead of them. Some of that's injury. Lane Thomas, for example. Dylan Carlson would be another one, but he hasn't thrived yet elsewhere. We'll see if that happens. But all that stuff, there's just been reasons why they haven't had that long look or that patience that the Brewers have been afforded. And I think that's caught up with them. And they eventually agreed with it. It's something that I know I've had that conversation with them over the last couple of years, is why didn't these guys get this long runway? And all of a sudden you hear that phrase being used by the Cardinals. We're going to give these guys a long runway. And it's like, all right, well, you see it work elsewhere, and we'll see if it finds out. But I do remember getting some, like, when I use that phrase, I do remember getting some, furrowed eyebrows, like, how dare you? But there is something to it, like Randy Arozarena never really got that quote unquote long runway with the Cardinals.
He got no runway. They gave him no shot.
Yeah.
He never got in the lineup.
No, he did not.
I mean, we made a song about it on my show.
You did.
Randy
it was
Day, up to day.
I think it's. I honestly think that was your best song.
It was. It's my only song, but whatever.
Oh,
and
we know that's not your only song.
We didn't even make it. The listener sent that in, which was awesome. But it's kind of that point. Now, how much, Derek, though, to me, there's another part of this is I think part of their failing of younger players, because I do think they failed a lot of those guys, I think they did in part, but based on what you're talking about with giving them runway and letting them play through it, because they've been so bad in April the last 2 years. It's easy when you're Milwaukee, if you're 17-8, to keep running the rookie out there who's struggling. But when you're 8 games under 500 2 years in a row in the month of April, and you sell yourself as a contender, you don't even let it have a chance, because your other mistakes, your pitching imploding in 2023 and your 2 stars not hitting last year, those actually have been part of what's restricted either the willingness or the ability to stick with young guys. And it's still a mistake. You're still, the point you're making is still right. You have to have the courage of your convictions. And if you think a guy's good, you got to let him play through it. But I do think that other failings have led to struggles for younger players and getting yanked in and out of the lineup. How many times, you guys, the 3 of us, how many times did we talk about this with Colton Wong in his early days?
Well, he got
getting yanked around and sent down and moved to center field, and then just play him. And once they started playing him, he was fine.
Let me ask you.
He got sent down specifically for the offensive struggles elsewhere.
Right.
No, I mean, he got sent down that one time because he was on the bench and because Mark Ellis was playing. And there was just because Matheny gravitated toward the veteran second baseman to put in a lineup that was struggling. And Mozeliak said, I'm not going to have a prospect sitting there gathering rust. And it was like, wait, Colton did nothing. He did nothing. No part of that was Colton doing something wrong except for not carrying an offense that he never was supposed to carry.
Right.
I love the Mark Ellis recall, by the way. That's a name I hadn't thought of in a while. What about let's go back to Carlson for a minute. So Carlson went from John Mozeliak going on KMOX one Sunday and saying, you can trade for Dylan if you're willing to pry him from my cold, dead hands. To and we were like, oh, alrighty then. To Carlson, Carlson playing sparingly to the point where when he was traded, it kind of was met with a shrug from everybody. I seem to recall in an interview that he did after a walk-off winner for the Rays late in the year. Trisha Whitaker, I'm pretty sure, did it on TV for the Rays on Bally. And he said something along the lines of, I just thank this team very much for putting their trust in me that I could get the job done. And I listened to it. That was clearly something that hit him hard. For each of you, what do you think happened with Carlson? And did he get enough? I mean, he played for a while with the team. Did he get enough opportunity to show what he can do? And it was already referred to by Derek that, so far he's not one of those, let him get away kind of players.
I mean, I think, with him, injuries came at really inopportune times. You think of 2 of the longest. He had a really strong rookie year. But when you think of like the times when he was a starter and was going to get either a long run as a number 2 hitter or a long run in center field, then injuries happened. The collision with Jordan Walker could not have come at a worse time. Dylan had found his groove, had started playing strong and assertive. The avenue was wide open for him to be their everyday center fielder. He had really taken that job because of injuries and all that stuff. And that injury just derailed it all. And then he came back quickly, came back when he was still hurt, where the shoulder was still not strong. And you're looking at a guy who was trying to find the power to begin with in his swing, trying to find that balance too as a switch hitter, and it just wasn't there. I mean, he wasn't hitting with authority. Some of that was physical, and when you aren't able to do that physically, then you aren't able to make the improvements that you had to do to unlock the power too. So it was like a cascade effect on him toward the end. I think this is a really interesting thing, guys, for us. I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on this. And it comes to mind.
Can I pause for a second?
Yeah.
Carlson had a breakout year in 2019 when the ball was juice. I assume you mean in the minors, because his rookie year was 2021. He didn't make it to the big leagues till 2020 for a cup of coffee. So
no, I meant
no. We have a comment. You can see at the bottom of the screen when he had his breakout year. And again, he may be referring to the minor leagues.
I got you.
Yeah, we get comments.
Yeah, we throw them in there every once in a while.
Sorry, I was like, did I say a sentence I didn't think I said?
No.
What? Oh, what?
No.
We had one time a guy named Tom made a comment, and I think it was Kevin was like, "Sorry, Tom, but I disagree with that." And I was like, just so people know on radio,
yeah,
he's not referring to me. I don't
okay, all right. No, that's good.
But I'll say this: I'm going to throw that back up there. Let's give Steve the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that Steve means the minor league season, because there have been a couple of years where the ball was a little hot in the minor leagues too. At least it seemed that way. But what it was they were using the major league ball in AAA. So if that's what you're referring to, Steve, let's work off that. So I'll assume that's what you mean. I think that might raise an interesting point, because I look back, Dylan Carlson has always been, I mean, we're now talking about 1,700 plus plate appearances, has always had well below average exit velos. He has always had that from the time he broke into he has never had a year where he was above average on exit velos. And my criticisms would be a couple things. One, but in the minors, you get away with it because he has a good eye. One thing he's really good at is knowing the strike zone and not chasing. That can benefit you in the minors and against lesser pitching.
Worked against him in the majors.
But when he gets to the majors, he doesn't have the bat speed to make up for mistakes or for maybe getting behind in counts or for whatever. Right. And it never improved. And that to me is the real question and criticism. This guy's a first round pick. He's obviously a talented athlete. This is on both the player and the team. Why did his exit velo never change? Why was it always that? Was there, I mean, you don't go to Driveline, you don't have a program in place to build bat speed, to work on driving the ball more, to do all, I'm saying none of it worked. Right. Because it was the same at the end as it was at the beginning.
So is that a rhetorical, or do you want the answer to it?
No, I'm just saying, I'm kind of using that as the example of what we're talking about is a lot of these guys just aren't making big improvements, or they show up with a reputation that exceeds what the performance will be after that.
Totally agree. Okay, so quick thing. One of the things about 2019, just because it was brought up, that was at Springfield. Springfield's a good place to hit. It's also a breakout offensive play. Yeah. Like whenever you think of
after you get out of like Florida State League,
right. You get out of the Florida State League, you get out of Roger Dean Stadium, you get to the Texas League, where it used to be very claustrophobic. You would play a lot of the teams a lot of the time, so you get very comfortable against pitchers. You're very comfortable in that ballpark. It's a place where breakouts happen. You can long list of it. You got Matt Adams, Oscar Tavares, Colby Rasmus, most recently Thomas Sajaci, Jimmy Crooks. Look at the offensive breakouts that just happen in Springfield. So that also happened for Dylan. I would argue that Dylan hitting 18 home runs as a rookie in the majors in 2021. That's a breakout season. That's the one that you go, oh, wait, 18. I mean, because look, that's pretty standout. So But to answer your question specifically, because it does meld into the one that I would really like to get your guys' opinion on, because one of the best examples the Cardinals have had is now back with them, is, Dylan just didn't put on size. Like, that was part of it. He just could not maintain the frame that the Cardinals projected him and he aimed to have, and all the work he did to put on, muscle to that frame and athleticism. Just, it didn't happen. He had a really hard time maintaining mass, and to get the better bat speed, to get that strength, to get all the things that you're talking about, Kevin Wheeler. That's what he was doing. And I just said your full name because it's right there underneath your face here. But here's my question for you. All right, because it relates to this, is they need to amplify. That's what you're talking about. They need to amplify players. They need to take players and amplify them. It's not about who's gone. It's about who they kept and why they plateaued.
Right.
Don't plateau, amplify.
Right.
Can you guys think of we can do outfielders, because I think Mason Wynn is the answer on the infield. But can you think of an outfielder who has come up to the Cardinals and forced his way into being a regular in the lineup? Because one of the more best examples that they had of doing this, despite them constantly, almost annually, saying that somebody was going to play ahead of him, John Jay did this every year. Every year in spring, he was competing for a spot, or they had a preference. Yeah, the U. There you go. He wasn't at the winter meetings because he was in class at the U. I'm not even kidding. He had to finish up his finals.
I know.
So
the
Cardinals' new coach, every year, I remember it like clockwork. Every spring, you guys both remember this too. All right, here's the competition for center fielder. Here's the guy who is going to be the everyday center fielder. And long about August, it's John Jay again. He's just outperforming guys. I wonder who the last guy to really do that was. Go Canes. Is that like a lunch request?
Can be. And a good one.
Gashouse Gang on KMOX with Kevin Wheeler and our guest, Derrick Goold. I'm Tom Ackerman. Derrick, to answer your question, a name that popped into my head right away who sort of jumped into the scene and was like untouchable at the time was Lars Nootbaar.
Right.
The problem is that Nootbaar, who was like this freak athlete who was making incredible plays in the field and hitting home runs and a big smile, and people were having some fun. The problem, of course, became being injury prone. And that is a skill in baseball, is finding a way to stay on the field and finding a way to manage your body. And so that's a player right there that I think the path is still open for him to do great things. I don't know if he's going to be an all-star, but if he's healthy, he could be a contributor for this team. Somebody has to be in that outfield. I mean, of course, everyone's hoping that it's Walker, but I still put Nootbaar in the category of, if he could be healthy, if he could play a full season, what could he be? He gets on base. That's a big positive for him.
Yeah, Jordan Walker might be the example of if their development is going in the right direction.
Right.
Lars Nootbaar might be the example of if their offense and their team is going in the right direction. If that makes sense. A left-handed bat that can do like he did. But Lars hasn't really had a stretch of more than 50 games because of injury. And the one time that he did, he was exceptional.
Yep.
So you're right, but he's got to be on the field.
And he's the guy that is probably an example of what we're talking about. The guy that's put in all the time, gone into the hitting lab in the offseason, went into the weight room and got bigger and stronger, added extra to be like that's what you need to be. Now, that's why I say some of it's on development is on two parties. Some of it's on the team and some of it's on the player. The player has to want to do the work, and the team has to have the ability to. No, I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying that it's a combination of things. And you nailed a good point. Some of it is just genetics. I mean, staying healthy is not somebody's fault. You're built a certain way, right? A good example of this would have been a guy like Rocco Baldelli as a player. Rocco Baldelli was a freak. He was a great player. He was strong. He could throw, but he actually had like a genetic condition that led to injuries, and he had to retire because of it. Yeah. And I'm not saying that these are all the same, but the point is there's a spectrum. Some people have the genetics to play 162 games and they're fine and they can get big and strong. And some people have a hard time adding weight, and some people have a hard time staying healthy. And it's not necessarily a fault. It can be, but usually it's not. And that's kind of the nature of it. But then our question then becomes the one that you're kind of getting to when we're talking about a team is, why do these things keep happening? Right? Because we've cycled this outfield through how many times in the last 5, 6, 7 years? Mm-hmm. Why are they continuously getting into these situations? I don't know. I don't know that there's a good answer. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe there's no connecting tissue there. Maybe it's just luck of the draw, and sometimes crap happens to you. But that's certainly a thing that you've got to solve. And the guy to get it solved with, you nailed it, is Jordan Walker, because he doesn't have to get stronger. He doesn't have to add bat speed. He doesn't have to do anything physical, like in terms of changing his body or anything like that. He just needs to play. He needs to make some minor refinements, and a lot of that comes with playing. You can't do those things just in the minor leagues. And I also think the team failed him a little bit by not putting him in the outfield from the day he was drafted. I understand, keep him comfortable as a third baseman while he learns how to hit, but you also put him in a position where he arrived in the major leagues having never played a position that he's going to play every day, under pressure in front of 40,000 fans. And I think that may have also played into, when your brain gets tied up, it can play into your entire game.
Don't be so quick to forgive that, Kevin, because it was 2020 and they were at the alt site where the games didn't count.
Yeah.
There was a laboratory galore. And for him not to have seen outfield in that setting is.
I don't forgive it. In fact, I think it's unforgivable that you had Nolan Arenado and Nolan Gorman, and Walker was never going to play third base in the big leagues. He was never going to. Scouts were saying that before he was a Cardinal. They were saying that in the lead
before
up to
he
the
was
draft.
Drafted.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons he was available to the Cardinals. If he had been an adequate third baseman, he would have been a top 10 pick, and you would have never had a chance at him. The defensive questions were part of why he was where he was in the first round. And we all knew that, and why the team didn't just get started on that. I think Derrick is unforgivable, and it's not the only reason, right? The player can recover, and I think he will. I'm a huge fan of Jordan Walker, but you put too much on by trying to baby him in the beginning. You actually put him in a backwards position when he got to the big leagues.
I mean, it's just, you could compare and contrast just how odd it was that Mason Wynn pitched at the alt camp and played shortstop. Right. And Jordan Walker played third and did not see the outfield. Just even as like, hey, man, just get comfortable.
The Gashouse Gang on KMOX with Kevin Wheeler and our special guest, Derrick Goold. I'm Tom Ackerman. Let's close our final 5 minutes or so by discussing Arenado and everything that kind of follows that. So there was a question up there. Well, Daddy Padre just got his answer. I don't believe that's Mike Schilt, Daddy Padre, but he could be disguising himself.
The Blues goalie.
Hey, he likes ball talk, right?
Yeah. Gorman at third. Yeah. I mean, that's your answer. Walker in right field. But Arenado, it's not if he gets dealt, it's pretty much when. So
I still think there's like a little.
What do you? I was going to ask you. What do you think about that? Is there a chance? That was exactly what I was going to ask you. Is there a chance that it all comes back and he says, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna stay."
Yeah, I mean, he has all the power, and his agent said he didn't want a lateral move. Now the question is, what's a lateral move, right? Lateral move is it in the standings or is it in the circumstance? Like a great litmus test for that is Boston, right? Boston is putting in a lot of money, they're trading everything like that. But that's also a very rigorous division. So where is the better avenue to the playoffs currently? Is it Boston's route through the American League East? Or is it, as we stand, the Cardinals with their current roster going in the Central? I think it's really fascinating because like Arenado's choice will directly influence that answer. But that's something they'll have to weigh in. I've asked all the parties involved here, with the exception of the teams that are interested. I haven't asked them, but I've asked all the parties involved with the Cardinals, Arenado, his group, and everything. Like, is this over? Like, is this just like, is this just moving on? And they've all been very clear that he's not requested a trade. Even the Cardinals have said that.
Right.
He's not demanded a trade. He's merely open to a trade to get closer to a championship. He wants that. But he also likes elements, and you hear this echoed in Sonny Gray too. They like elements of what they have with the Cardinals, whether that's what they've found as far as a home or a clubhouse or relationship with players or a manager or all that stuff, or the history of the place. I think, they're actively looking and they're being public about looking for a trade. Usually, Tom, that leads to a trade, right? The last time we saw it was with Tyler O'Neill. Maybe we saw it, a little bit. We knew it was coming with Stephen Piscotty for vastly different reasons. But this one feels a little bit different. And when I've asked them, like, is there a scenario where Arenado's in Jupiter with the team, and no one says no. They don't like rule that out. Do they have some conversations that will happen before they get there? Absolutely. And what that looks like. But, Arenado has committed twice to the Cardinals when he had a chance to get out. A third time he sought specifically a trade to them. This will be a fourth time where he gets to say, I want to go because I can get to a better spot. I can get to a more appealing spot. I can move up in the standings. But if he says no, man, like, Cardinal fans love their guys who commit to St. Louis. What does a 4-time commitment claim say about a player?
Yeah, I mean, I know we only have like 2 minutes or whatever, but I want to do this fast.
Sure.
That creates a massive problem if he's there on opening day, because you then do not have playing time for everybody you need to get playing time for.
Really?
Where's the JC play if 600 at bats at third base are going to him, and Gorman and Donovan and Nootbaar have to share second base left field with Burleson at the DH mix, with none of them currently seeming like the team would play them with any regularity in center field. So, like, where are the at bats versus JC? How do you get Nolan Gorman full run? How do you keep Donovan and Nootbaar in the lineup and play their defense preference in center field? You literally cannot do all of it if he's your third baseman.
You can if Lars Nootbaar plays center.
Well, and I've been advocating that forever, but I keep being told by the team or hear from the team that they don't like that. Yeah, that they don't want to do it. And they, like, if they do that, shoot, they should have done it last year.
Well, they tried it last year. I mean, that's last year with him. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, look, you got to keep him healthy. Right?
Yeah, I get it. But I mean,
there might be something to keeping him healthy in center field.
All right. I mean, look, first of
all,
not
unusual for a guy to say, I like to run without running into wall.
Yeah. I always find these arguments about you're healthier in left field than center to be just silly, because everybody will make an argument to suit whatever their move is going to be.
No, well, that's fair. But I think, like, guys make compelling arguments. Yeah. Like, I think, like, look, Lance Berkman and Alan Craig had this ongoing discussion about what was healthier. Tom knows this. You guys both know this, right?
Yeah.
What was healthier, outfield or first base? Outfielder or first base. And they both made compelling arguments, and in the end, they both played both positions. They got over. But I thought they had, like, interesting comments, and other guys have talked about that too, that the free range of center field, where you're not running into a wall in foul territory, you're not putting on the brakes, you're not it can, however you feel.
This is kind of my point, is everybody makes an argument for whatever they want. Like, well, you'll run a little less in left so your legs will be better. That's nonsense.
I mean, Larry Walker had the best argument. He wanted to play right field because the home dugout was on the first base line.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you're, Harrison Bader, occasionally you fall on a baseball. I mean, that was how he injured himself there. Right. He landed on a ball. I mean, freak things do happen, but there's something to be said about that center field. I'm going to extend this just a few minutes here, and I think for our radio listeners tonight, when they're listening on replay, we'll probably start this replay at the start of our baseball talk with Derrick anyway. So we can kind of, from a time frame standpoint, I'm sure
a few more minutes in. Let's go.
Yeah, our fine editors and producers will make this work. We got the best in the business.
That's Tom's polite way of saying my answers are too long, Kevin.
No.
It's not just you, dude.
We did great. Last thing is I want to really direct, because we got a lot of people watching and listening to this, and they're all baseball fans and they love baseball, and that's the reason that they pay attention to the show. I think they should pay attention to the baseball writers dinner. I truly believe this, that when you set foot in there for the first time, you come out of it with a renewed sense of how special baseball is in this time, in this area. Both present and future are celebrated, but also the past. And I think that it's great from that standpoint for all baseball fans, young and old. Derrick, tell us about the Baseball Writers Dinner, which is coming up Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, winter warm-up weekend here in St. Louis.
Right, January 19th, Sunday night there in St. Louis, a tradition unlike any other, right? There's just minus the red coats, I guess. The 65th annual Writers Dinner. This year we are pleased to honor Ozzie Smith, who will be there. There'll be 1985 St. Louis Cardinals reunion. Obviously, the date gives that away. We're going to also have some other folks to honor. I'm really thrilled that one of our biggest, we have two really signature, well, three. We have three signature honors, right? The Red Shaney's Medal for lifetime commitment and contribution to baseball. We have the Branch Rickey Award, which is for innovation and contributions to baseball, that has really gone to just an eclectic and really impactful group of people when you think of the years that we've given that award out. And then, of course, the St. Louis Baseball Man of the Year Award, that's going to Ryan Helsley. We have a special guest coming to present him with that award from the Cardinals past, which I'm very excited about. Let's just say that Ryan Helsley may have broken this gentleman's record, but he's coming to give the honor. And then, of course, Ozzie Smith getting the Red Shaney's Medal. Can't think of a better honor. I've really been thinking a lot, and I won't belabor this, but I've really been thinking a lot about all that Ozzie Smith has done as an ambassador for St. Louis, for baseball, and for the Baseball Hall of Fame. Put it like all in context, or even just take a look at some of the baseball activities from the National Baseball Hall. You look at the photos from there. It's like Ozzie's always there. He's just like a tremendous champion of Cooperstown. And by being a tremendous champion of Cooperstown, he's constantly representing St. Louis at those events because he is a St. Louis Cardinal. That's what he shows there. And I think as you think about the place, just like Tom mentioned, that baseball has here, it's deep, deep, deep in the roots. It's in the water table of St. Louis. Baseball just is. But one of the reasons why it continues to be is because you have folks like Ozzie Smith, who's out there at all these major events where a baseball fan can't blink without seeing a Cardinal or Cardinal logo. It's just part of the continuity of greatness that the organization has with its history. And then, of course, the Branch Rickey Award is going to Bob Kendrick from the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. This has just been what a remarkable for all of us to celebrate the Negro Leagues, to learn about them. Rick Wood, the stats being embraced. There's just a lot to the awareness and enthusiasm and excitement and knowledge that he's brought to this conversation that is so deserving. He's such a great man, and he's brought so many people closer to the game and closer to the history of the game that we should all know through his actions. I think it's great. So yeah, I love the Baseball Writers Dinner is the lineage. The three of us here, Tom, you've been very active with it. Kevin, I know you've been around. Obviously, it's been a big part of my life for 21 years now. But it goes back because, and I'll close it here, Tom, if you let me, is, when I was a student at Mizzou, I got a scholarship from the St. Louis Baseball Writers. And that's what we used the dinner to do. Money for scholarships for the next generation of baseball writers, the next generation of journalists. We also use it to fund a one-of-a-kind internship, which has produced Ben Frederickson, a columnist at the Post-Dispatch. So it's a very worthwhile endeavor for us, not only to maintain the history, because this is the lineage of Bob Bragg and Rick Hummel and the group that has kept the dinner going, but it's also about the future and funding the group, the development, because that's the whole theme of this offseason, of the next generation of writers who are going to keep this going.
I think it's important to go, if you can, to celebrate St. Louis baseball and to be around all those luminaries. It is a special, special night, January 19th at the Missouri Athletic Club, the Baseball Writers Dinner, St. Louis, bbwaa.com to get tickets. That stands for Baseball Writers Association of America. St. Louis, bbwaa.com. I agree, Eric. Derrick is good. Therefore, we are going to try to get him back for another show. We love having him on the Gashouse Gang. This has been fun. Thank you very much for doing this, Derrick. We really appreciate it. Of course, we read your stuff like crazy, and we appreciate you.